is it possible to turn the world on with a smile, or to take a nothing day and suddenly make it all seem worthwhile? Well, we all hope so, don't we? And when an actor like Mary Tyler Moore brings a character to life who mirrors our own foibles and dreams, we're deeply grateful. I have to confess, there are days when I've led worship services, not here, fortunately, when it's been just a few minutes before starting time and nobody has shown up yet. And I think to myself, what if nobody comes to my party? And I suddenly realize, well, that's Mary Richards speaking. And maybe all of us hear such a voice at times, in those panicky moments before the people do, of course, show up. Later in her career, when she portrayed Beth Jarrett in Ordinary People, Mary Tyler Moore also showed us that difficult people are also worthy of compassion, that they have an inherent worth, beauty, and dignity, even if they are hard to like. As each of us tries to remember that we can make it after all, and that love is all around, we celebrate the life and career of Mary Tyler Moore.
Leslie Feinberg is on our list this year in error, given that she actually died 3 years ago. But seeing as this is our first time to do such a service, and seeing that hers was a life so powerfully lived, we still honor her today. Leslie Feinberg was a revolutionary figure in our contemporary understanding of gender. Her books, Stone Butch Blues and Transgender Warriors, laid the groundwork in the field of gender studies, providing much of the terminology we use today. And they brought greater awareness of gender and particularly transgender issues to a much wider audience. She was also a proud member of the Workers' World Party and the managing editor of the Workers' World newspaper. She described herself as an anti-racist, white, working-class, secular Jewish, transgender, lesbian, female, revolutionary communist. We remember her for the way she advanced radical inclusion by inviting people to open their minds and their hearts.
When she was 17, she became the first female student in Iran to win the International Mathematical Olympiad. It would be among the first of many honors the mathematician Maryam Mirzakhani would receive before her death at age 40 last year. In 2014, a year after she was diagnosed with breast cancer, she won the Fields Medal, the highest award in mathematics, becoming the only woman and the only Iranian to do so. She believed in taking math slowly, taking the time and effort to see the beauty of math. And her young daughter described her mother's work as painting, because in order to solve problems, Maryam would draw doodles on a page and write equations around the drawings. When she died, many newspapers broke taboo, publishing photographs in which she wore no head covering. As well, her death prompted calls to change legislation that currently denies citizenship to children of Iranian mothers who married foreigners. Maryam Mirzakhani will continue to be an inspiration, especially to the female students at the Faculty of Mathematics where she studied, which now bears her name. Now let us rise in body or spirit and join together in singing hymn 1001, Breaths.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead are not under the earth. rustling trees, they are in the groaning woods, they are in the crying grass, in the moaning rocks. The dead are not under the earth. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters. Those who have died have never, never left. The dead have a pact with the living. They are in the woman's breast. They are in the wailing child. They are in us in our homes. They are with us in this crowd. The dead have a pact with the living. So listen more often to things than to beings. Listen more often to things than to beings. 'Tis the ancestors' breath when the fire's voice is heard. 'Tis the ancestors' breath in the voice of the waters.
Derek Walcott, born in 1930 on the island of San Lucia, would go on to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. He was a mixed-race poet living on a British-ruled island whose people spoke French-based Creole or English. He published his first poem at the age of 14 in a local newspaper, and soon thereafter, with a loan from his mother, he began to publish his poems in pamphlets while he was still in high school. Though his education was thoroughly Anglo-centric, he wrote of the world he knew on the island. Since the best way to honor a poet is with a poem, I offer you his poem, Love After Love. The time will come when, with elation, you will greet yourself arriving at your own door, in your own mirror, and each will smile at the other's welcome and say, "Sit here. Eat." You will love again the stranger who was yourself. Give wine, give bread, give back your heart to itself, to the stranger who has loved you all your life, whom you ignored for another, who knows you by heart. Take down the love letters from the bookshelf, the photographs, the desperate notes. Peel your own image from the mirror. Sit, feast on your life.
It was a 17-day father and son road trip from Minneapolis to San Francisco. The book took 6 years to write, and initially it was rejected by 122 publishers. But Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance would make Robert Pirsig a best-selling author and provide an entertaining introduction to both Eastern and Western philosophy for millions of readers following its publication in 1974. Compared to Kerouac and Thoreau, among others, Pirsig sought an answer to the question, what is quality? And he inspired many to reflect deeply on the meaning of life. Pirsig himself had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia and clinical depression while in his 30s and had been treated with electroshock therapy. His first marriage ended in divorce, and his son Chris, who accompanied him on the motorcycle journey, was fatally stabbed in a mugging at age 22 outside the San Francisco Zen Center. Today we remember Robert Pirsig and the lifelong quest to find the source of meaning and quality in life, despite the many challenging obstacles we encounter along the road.
Richard Wagamese was born in 1955 in the Ojibwe-Wabaseemoong Independent Nations in Northwest Ontario. In his recent book, Embers, One Ojibwe's Meditations, Wagamese speaks of what it means to recover. He said, to recover is to be reborn. We arrive here covered in spiritual qualities like innocence, humility, trust, acceptance, and love. But things happen, and those qualities get removed from us. Those qualities get churched off, spanked off, schooled off, and beaten off. Sometimes we rinse them off ourselves with drugs and booze and poor choices. Wagamese knew this story firsthand. He and his siblings were neglected and abandoned by the adults in their early life who were unable to care for them. They were part of the 60s scoop that saw many Indigenous children placed in foster homes with white parents rather than left in the care of their own communities. Wagamese spent the balance of his growing up years in St. Catharines always feeling a foreigner to the culture around him. Abused in foster care, he tried to reconnect with his own culture, but the road back was rough. After years of struggling with alcohol and drugs and several stays in prison, Wagamese met an elder who gave him the name Buffalo Cloud and told him that his role was to tell stories, and that is exactly what he did. He started writing for the Calgary Herald as the Native Affairs columnist, and in 1991 won a National Newspaper Award, the first Indigenous person to do so. In time, he turned his attention to writing novels and is best known for Indian Horse, which was adapted into a film and premiered just last fall at the Toronto International Film Festival. We honor Wagamese for the stories he lived to tell, stories that will endure in our understanding of what it means to work toward reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples of this land.
I think I love you, so what am I so afraid of? I'm afraid that I'm not sure of a love there is no cure for. I think I love you, isn't that what life is made of? But it worries me to say I never felt this way. Believe me, the day your teen idol dies marks a turning point in one's life. You may feel like a starry-eyed teenager some days, but when someone like David Cassidy dies, as he did in November at age 67, you know you're really grown up. I myself didn't have a crush on Keith Partridge.
I did. And his brother too.
Shawn, yeah. I, on the other hand, had a crush on the entire Partridge family. I fell in love with their songs, I bought all of their albums, and I was devastated when the show was canceled. Just ask my mom. It was an early love affair, and we never forget those. As we mourn David Cassidy, we honor and grieve the love-struck teenagers we all once were, and we celebrate the mature and passionate adults that we are all still becoming. We remember, we cherish the memories of our first romantic experiences, the longings, the thrills, the heartbreaks. With joy for the memory of David Cassidy and all teen idols, we sing, I think I love you, I think I love you, I think I love you.
Al Jarreau comes from a school of music that is crossover between R&B and jazz. He worked in tandem with Quincy Jones on a lot of projects, including one of my favorites called The Soulful Messiah, which is a R&B reimagining of Handel's Messiah. And Al Jarreau does the kind of tenor solo on that one that's really cool. But he was very different in his time, that he brought a real kind of jazz sensibility to a pop